Hi there everyone. Today I'm going to talk about key matching mixes. Have you ever been listening to a DJ set and just heard two records go together so beautifully, musically as well? And that's what we're going to learn how to do. Quite often it's an accident. DJ chooses two tunes, they happen to blend beautifully together. But you can do this, you can achieve this absolutely every time, on purpose. And I'm going to show you the techniques for setting up a set, no pun intended, to achieve this. The first thing you have to understand about key match sets is that when you prepare a set key matched, you are kind of committing to the order of tunes. So that's not a massive problem. It just means that in the selection process you have to be very careful. When you're back at home putting your set together, you have to make sure that you choose very powerful tunes and that you really prepare the set very, very thoroughly. It's quite a lengthy process, but I think the end results are just to die for. And especially when you're talking about a studio mix, well, I actually wouldn't have it any other way. So let's look at the process. First of all, we're going to look at the equipment that you need to use. Obviously, you're going to need the regular utensils for DJing, whatever apparatus you use. So in my case, that's going to be two Technics 1210s and a mixer. But it can be two CDJs and a mixer. And for those of you naughty futuristic people who are using Tractor and things like that, shame on you. There's actually plugins with some of those programs that help you key match. A word of warning, key matching is not as simple as all that, and it depends on the records that you're using. If you're using records that are quite simplistic in their riffs, then it should be really quite straightforward. I've specifically chosen as an example an old school set. I'm going to put together a 92 stroke 93 classics thing. So that's some of the most difficult music to mix. Some of the tonal centers are really obscured, or they have various parts that are in different tonal centers. So it makes it a lot trickier, but for the purpose of explaining how to do this particular technique, it's probably best that I choose something difficult rather than easy. But there'll be some easy ones in there, no doubt. Well, there they are, my weapons of choice. Two Technics and a mixer, old school to the core. So possibly quite suitable considering that we're doing an old school set. Okay, part two of the equipment is the stuff that we use to establish the tonal centers or keys of the records. The easiest way to do this actually is just simply to have a keyboard and one record. I'm not going to do that for this particular mix. There's two reasons for that. The first being that I'm a little short on space in this room, so that combined with my excitement about these classics that I haven't heard for a little while, I've pulled out my collection, probably going to knock it flying. The second reason being that obviously there's a real wear and tear on a vinyl. If you're having one record that you're mixing everything into, you're going to mix it 50 times. So I really don't want to ruin a record that much. So I've opted for a different method. This is probably better anyway. I've got Cubase up and running on the screen here, and I've got a beat from an old school tribute tune that I produced a couple of years back. The tempo's 130, so that's round about right for 92. Some of the tunes will be a little faster by the end of the year. They got a little faster. Some of the tunes will be a little slower. It's a good average speed though. So this is the beat that I'm going to mix all the tracks against. I'll just get that for you. Okay, here we go. Okay, so that's the template for the mix, and also I've got up and running a VST instrument. This is because I don't have a physical keyboard that I'm using. This is the Lounge Lizard, what a great name, which is a simple keyboard Fender Rhodes plugin, and I can use just the VST MIDI editing page here, up the side. I've got all the notes of the chromatic scale. So this is basically the reference. When we listen to a record, when we mix it into that beat, we listen to the tonal center or centers, because some of these tracks are a little bit complex. Some of them have more than one tonal center, and we put them down on the list. And here's the list. This is the set list. You can see I've already done a few. There's a section for C, C sharp, D flat, D, E flat, etc. all the way through to B. And as we hear each record, we're going to add it to the list. You can see that already I've got a couple for C sharp, I've got a couple for A flat, I've got a couple for F, I've got none for E, B flat or B yet, but the law of averages tells me that once I've been through the pile of records, I'm likely to have at least one of everything, unless I'm very unlucky. It's not a huge problem, you can get around it anyway. So that's the list itself. One thing that you have to remember is that when you mix and use the vary speed, keys change. So this is the reason for the template beat or record. It's no good putting a record on the turntable and saying, oh, it's in that key, because obviously when you mix it, once you put it into sort of like plus or minus territory, the key changes as well as the speed. So they all need to be relative to one tempo. So that's the reason for this particular piece of equipment. And finally, the most important part, the music itself. So these are the records that I've chosen. There's a nice fat stack of vinyl there, plus these, which I've already done. Because it's a 92 Classics mix, I've pulled out a range of tracks, including some really big famous tunes. You can see we've got Sweet Harmony here, I've got Charlie, I've even got this, yes, Sesame Street, Some Justice, DJs Take Control, and some more recherche classics. Whilst we're talking about the music, you know, with these old tunes that have been sort of like battered to death almost, this is the good thing about key matching. You actually improve the musicality of the mixing, so that the track surrounding, say for example Sesame Street, will contribute elements that actually work with that tune. So like I once heard someone say about DJs, a great DJ should be able to make a good record sound excellent and an excellent record sound just off the planet. So once we've key matched these records up, it's very likely this tune's going to get a new fresh burst of life and sound a lot better than, oh, that's unfair. It was a good tune, it was just really cheesy. Of its time. Okay, well now we come to the set preparation itself. The technique's quite simple. All you have to do is quickly mix each record from the pile against the template beat, hear the tonal center, add it to the list. Simple as that. Or is it? Well, no, it's not actually that simple. First thing, to be honest, you do have to have some musicality to do this. You need your musical ears really on. You need to be listening to the record and trying to distinguish what note sort of ties it all together, and that's what we call the tonal center, or the key that the track is actually in. With this particular old school set, that's going to be a real challenge on some tracks, due to the, should we say, lack of musical training of some of the artists. Some of these records are going to be all over the shop. In terms of the samples they've used, may well not even match the tonal centre of the bass line. Quite often there was a switch in '92 between sort of like piano house elements and the hardcore sort of Belgium techno Hoover elements, and quite often they don't match up either. So you can be writing quite some details on your set list to help you do the key matching. Actually, that can sometimes work to your advantage though. It can sort of like get you out of a tricky key that you don't really have an option for, or an obvious option for. But we'll see. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. I'm not going to, you know, be here for the next 4 hours whilst I do the set. So I'll give you a couple of examples. One easy one that I know the answer to, and one that we'll do together. Oh, how sweet.